From one law enforcement agency to another, warning, some of those images may be tough to watch. This morning, new details on former Deputy Sean Grayson's troubling history in law enforcement. 30-year-old Grayson worked at 6 police departments in 4 years.
7 months on, how are you still employed by us?
I don't know.
That's Grayson in a 2022 recording responding to his then boss, Deputy Chief Nathan Miller at the Logan County, Illinois Sheriff's Office, questioning him about his mishandling of a traffic case.
Do you understand that's a violation of pursuit policy?
Yes, I do.
Grayson was accused of violating department policy and submitting inaccurate reports.
But a lot of officers have been charged and end up in jail because that's what they perceived. Official misconduct will land you in jail.
Grayson's integrity also raised.
Others will say you have no integrity and you're lying. I'm calling you on your integrity. How does that make you feel?
I'm learning from it. I don't get angry.
Logan County eventually terminating Grayson.
If we can't trust what you say and what you see, we can't have you in our uniform.
Grayson now behind bars and charged with murder for the July 6th shooting of Sonya Massey in her home near Springfield, Illinois. Massey called police to report a possible prowler. Things quickly escalate when deputies told her she could remove a pot of boiling water from the stove.
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I
rebuke you in the name of
You better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in the face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot! Drop the 19 shots fired. Shots fired! Shots fired!
Grayson has pleaded not guilty. Massey's heartbroken and angry family now wondering why Grayson was able to jump from department to department. Her father speaking to ABC affiliate KATV.
Our whole family is in a disarray. The main focus of everybody is that this animal gets justice. He gets exactly what he deserves.
Overnight, the Sangamon County Sheriff apologizing.
I'm sorry. She called for help and we failed her. That's all she did. That's all she did was call for help.
And Grayson was also discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. He is being held without bond. His attorney declined to comment. Robin?
Also, he was charged with 2 DUIs as well. The more you learn, the more questions that we have. Now, how he was able to keep a job like that. Okay. Thank you so much, Alex.
The biggest thing on the autopsy are the findings, and we will go through those. The conclusion is based on the information available to me and on the autopsy findings. It is my opinion that Sonya Massey, a 36-year-old black woman, died as a result of a gunshot wound to the head. And then it goes on to in more detail, and it says the gunshot wound of the head, the entrance was beneath the left eye. The injury, proliferation of the left internal I'm looking at this word because I know it's not subdural artery, but it's an artery that is the blood vessel right beneath her eye. The exit, posterior left surface of the upper neck. Associated injuries, skull fracture, subdural hemorrhages. Direction, front to back, downward and slightly right to left. Range, no soot or gunpowder stippling on the skin. If you could turn it over. And I would tell you they had an anatomical model that is very important. Here, obviously, we have Sonya Massey with her beautiful smile. But you have, as they said, the injury right beneath the left eye. And then they talk about how the exit is posterior left surface of the upper neck, below the ear, below her hairline. Now, why this is so significant, is it confirms that Deputy Sean Grayson shot in a downward trajectory.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones, and we are giving our 2 cents on the Sonya Massey execution assassination incident that happened on July 6th at the hands of Deputy Sean Grayson. From what we've learned about Grayson is he has a troubled past as a law enforcement officer. 6 jobs in 4 years.
I could divide.
I'm just saying, so there are a lot of moving parts in this, and then there are not. I saw a video the other day when it was examining the tattoo on his left or right arm. So according to the tattoo, or according to the people who know about tattoo, I don't know about it, but it's supposed to be having him connected to a white supremacist group. So that stokes the fire of people believing that this assassination was racially motivated. I don't think that race was the overall motivation. I think he was just a horrible person, but we do have to examine everything that goes into it, because like I said, there are a lot of parts that, and then there aren't, because there are a lot of cut and dry evidence as well. So we know this is something that it can be an emotional sore spot for a lot of people. But also, one thing that we also want to look at is how this story is used in the media and used within politics, especially for right now, to help people push their agendas, which I think is horrible. But overall, we want to just examine what happened to Sonya Massey and why it happened to Sonya Massey. And, going back to why we need each other and why we have to learn how to protect ourselves a bit better. She was by herself. And it's unfortunate that she was in a situation where she called for law enforcement to come check out noise that she hears around her house. And then she ends up losing her life because of bad cop work. I've seen a lot of videos from different law enforcement officers around the country, all giving their opinion on it. I only saw one person trying to defend it, and it was a black woman. Make of it what you will, but for the most part, all officers were saying that, first of all, that was in there too long, they handled that wrong, and that was a non-lethal situation that ended up being lethal. Because I just don't know how hot water that you told her to get off the stove is a weapon that makes you think that you should fear for your life as a grown man with a gun on your hip. So, yeah. PC, man, go ahead and start with you, my brother. What do you think? What are your overall thoughts about the Sonya Massey situation?
Well, first of all, my condolences to her family. You know what I'm saying? Because this situation shouldn't have never happened. I think it goes beyond saying it should never happen. But prior to this, she had already made like 2 mental health wellness checks, wellness calls to the police, if I'm not mistaken. And her mother even got on the phone and said, you know, if you send somebody to the house, please make sure that, you know, you send somebody who is not prejudiced or bigoted, because her daughter is terrified of racist cops.
Hmm.
So, you know, you know, you have to wonder, you know what I'm saying, what preceded this in terms of even this degenerate even ending up in her house.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying, for and I'm gonna throw it on the I think race it does play a factor, because I don't think he would have done this to a 90-pound white woman had she been in there with a pot of water. You know what I'm saying? I think his whole demeanor would have changed, you know. Um, and I know she probably, you know, tugged on his demonic spirit by saying she rebuked him in the name of Jesus, because that seems to be what triggered him more than
Yeah,
anything else.
I've heard a lot of people make that. Oh, I have heard a lot of people say that, because you're right. That is what triggered him. Her saying, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." She said it twice. Then he got mad. "I'll shoot you in your face." So
Right. So, you know, when you know what I'm saying, first of all, it was a cowardly act.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? There's no justifying it. There's no rationalizing it, you know, for what it was. She called the police to do a perimeter check of her house. They didn't need to come inside her house. You know what I'm saying? To come inside of the house was
right.
something, even if they came in the house to look around, they didn't come in the house to look around. They didn't look around. You know what I'm saying? And then not only should Grayson be punished to the fullest extent of the law, which I thoroughly believe has a lot to do with this election cycle that he was actually even charged, because I think Illinois is one of those swing states, and actually had I think they just had the Democratic convention in Chicago. So
Yep.
you know what I'm saying. So they couldn't afford, but in Illinois, for there to be, you know, turmoil over a black woman. Like they're talking about empowering black women and, and all this other stuff with this election. They couldn't afford to not address somebody shooting a black woman in the face in
And
cold blood.
right. And to real quick to that point, I've heard people complain about Trump not addressing it, and that them for them that being a knock against him. But a lot of these people want to go vote for him anyway. But I've heard a lot of people say that they were mad that he didn't address it. I think the Democrats did address it though.
I believe so, and it's part of their, you know, they have to address it. You know what I'm saying? They're running on a platform of empowering black women. They better address it. Um, so I just think that in regards to this dude, you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure how much you want me to get into this now, but you know, this guy Sean Grayson, as you know, led with the clip, he's been in 6 different police departments in 4 years. Not only that, he was questionably discharged
From the
enough from
military.
the army, yeah, from the army, just enough to get to keep maintain his benefits, even though allegedly he has 2 DUIs
Right.
during that. Now, I- in regards to that, you know, because let me see, let me not Ben Trump this. Let me make sure I get the words right in terms of the name of this police department. All right. I think it's Sangaran or Sejman, the Sejman
Too late. Too late. You can't
yeah.
even.
Well, no,
Too
I got
late.
the whole word out though. The
You got
Sejman
you
Sheriff's
got Crump.
Department. I got Trump.
You big
It's
crook.
the gong. The Sejman Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, said that they didn't know that he had any background, like any of his previous um, um, anything previously on his record, negatively on his record in his background. Which, when you just saw, we saw an interview with him in a
Yeah, and the
former police
superior.
department where he was questioning his integrity. because he
in his
was lying
character.
on police reports.
Right.
Yeah, and turning his character. So you got that, you got the DUIs, then you got the harassment. He's been harassing people. He harassed a couple. He also harassed, I believe, the mother of one of his children. So he's been overly abusive with his force. Those are all things that are on his record. How
Yeah.
did it not get passed down to his current job? You know, at the
What?
Sedgman, the sheriff's
Well,
department.
if you get 6 jobs in 4 years, they're not really looking at your record because it was another I guess accusation of him eyeing a young. It was an inmate or lady who was being arrested. He was eyeing her while she was changing nude, and because several complaints from men and women.
So for me, I work on a college campus. Pat, you work on you work within the behavior and mental health field and as well taking classes. Joe, you work in a field where you have to go into college campuses. So we all have to have clearances that we have to pass in order to have access to these places.
Yeah.
We have to have child abuse clearances because sometimes we deal with people who may be under 18. So that comes from the state. We have to have FBI fingerprint scans to make sure that we haven't committed any crimes. All right. That's national on a national database. We also have to have state police clearances to make sure that we have not been arrested within those particular states we work in. All right, and we don't have any offenses in those states. So if all three of us who don't have to carry a firearm for our particular job, who don't have to, don't have the authority to arrest anybody, have to have those particular things. One has to wonder, how did the current sheriff that he works for did not know? Like, how did you not know that he didn't have all these discrepancies on his record prior to coming into your police department? When, as a police officer, you're supposed to go through an enormous amount more scrutiny than what we go through in terms of being hireable to your position.
Because they did half-ass jobs of vetting them, and then that's how you get his superior having that conversation with him after he done messed up because they didn't do a good job vetting these cats.
But see, I'm wondering, do this man like we need to do a background into his background. We need to do a deep dive. Who does he know that keeps allowing him to get these passes? Why wasn't he given a dishonorable discharge in the military? Why was he allowed to apply for 6 different police departments in 4 years? Who is greasing the skids for this dude? And then you see his demeanor. You know what I'm saying?
You know.
So who's working behind the scenes?
Well, a lot of people would say white privilege is calling cards.
Well, this is beyond white privilege stuff.
We know.
It happens.
It
happens. The cop that shot what was the child up there
Tamir Rice.
Tamir Rice. The cop that shot him also switched police departments right before that because he had shot somebody else. The cop that shot John Crawford up in Beaver Creek, Ohio, second time he was in the police department because he had, shot somebody else. So we know that this happens and this is the culture. But at some point, we have to look at, and I'm talking about us as Black people, we have to be have more intent on taking an interest in learning the backgrounds of the people who govern the areas that we live in. And I'll land my plane there.
See. Yeah, you talking about homework. Come on, peace.
Yeah.
Homework. But you're right. But you talking about homework. Okay. All right, Pat. What are your thoughts about the Sonya Massey shooting, Grayson, his background, all those things? Like, what's your view on this?
So this comes at a particularly interesting time for me because bit of self-disclosure in my last few days. I actually went out to see a particular client who is has borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, and a couple other things. And she behaves very similar to what I've read about the behaviors of Sonya Massey. And she got into an altercation, and the cops were called out. And by the time I showed up as her case manager, social worker, if you will, there were 4 cop cars, 6 cops, a mob of people, and she was in the middle of the mall threatening to do harm to anybody that came within a certain range of her. Nobody was shot.
Thankfully. What color was she?
She was not my complexion. We'll say that.
She was a white woman.
So the Sonya Massey thing hits a little bit different for me right now because I went through a situation a few days ago that was almost verbatim in terms of behavior of the person, the same, except for in this case, there was a lot more potential violence because there were active threats of harm. And I understand it's different scenarios. You can't one-for-one these things. You know, my biggest beef is always we try to like focus on the instead of focus on the bigger picture. So I get that, but I'm going ahead and stating that as a clear indicator that this story hits me a little different right now because of what I just went through. So it's actually something I've been meaning to call both of you brothers about to just kind of talk through it. But both of you brothers have been busy with dealing with your own things. So that's, you know, and I'm saying that because this is the first time both of them have heard this story too. Usually we talk about what we're going to talk about and ain't nothing new really said, unless I say something crazy, our PC decide to drop an extra cuss word. But so this is new all the way around. So when I'm looking at this story, the first thing I'm thinking is, first, if I read correctly, she sends her kids to live with their father, responsible on her, while she signed herself into a 30-day treatment clinic. And then she checked out. Excuse me. She checked out after 2 days. Okay. Her mother sends the note saying, calls in to say that my daughter is having a mental breakdown. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the first breakdown. That her mother had no choice but to call the police and beg them not to harm her daughter because they needed to go out and check on her. Why are the police doing these types of visits?
Well, because these people are behind the damn times and they ain't got their stuff together. That's why you got the sheriff of that or the lieutenant or the captain, whoever at the top of that doing his like half-ass apologize, but they clearly don't have their stuff together.
But this, to me, this is, and I agree with you, but this is like a structural issue where I think about it and I'm like, all right, if the police are going to be militarized and the police are going to be viewing everybody as a potential combatant, because I'm also thinking about the narratives. This narrative that my safety as a police officer is paramount and anything that you do to threaten that, I can use whatever force necessary to stop you from bringing me harm. So it's not even necessarily about equalizing the threat. Like if you threaten to do physical harm to me, I threaten to do physical. No, now it's about I get to do whatever I need to neutralize the threat, no matter what the threat is. And so now we have this problem where it's like, all right, there needs to be a non-combatant that comes out on wellness check calls. First off, needs to be a whole separate organization doing wellness checks to begin with. But if we're going to leave it in the hands of the police, there needs to be a non-combatant handling that.
To that, you made me remember to that point, to your example. We had a patient who came into our office and the patient was threatening bodily harm and self-deletion. So of course we had to make the call. So we made the call, but what I was happy about, and this was one of us, a black lady, and a mental health expert came out with the police. we in the Bible Belt South. Like, if we can do it, why they ain't doing it?
Yeah, that should be a whole. If we're gonna leave that in the hands of the police, PC is a therapist. That should be a position he could have. If he not saying PC, you go do it, but I'm just saying that should be a position available to him as a therapist. Be responding to whenever there's a wellness check, hit his jack. Hey PC, we got a situation over here, 1096 over here. Can you meet us at the scene? Yeah, I'll meet you there. Right, you take the lead. We won't go in. We won't engage. We won't interact at all until you get here. We're your backup. And then they just sit outside and wait for PC to show up.
Yeah. That should be how it's done. In fact, in Pennsylvania, we do have crisis teams that go out.
There you go. That's the name of it.
Go out to, whenever there's an incident or whatever, they're supposed to be the ones to go out. In addition to that, I do know the Philadelphia Police Department also has a mental health component that was specially supposedly specially trained officers who come out. And I've actually witnessed those officers engage. Now, there have been occasions, though, when I've seen other officers engage into a point. One guy, I had to save his life because they were going to shoot him in front of my house. And I had to get between him and the cops. I'm like, yo, I know him. He just happens to be high. Let me walk him home. You know what I'm saying? They were going to light him up in front of my house, same way they lit up Sonya Massey. So, what you're saying is actually correct, Patrick and Joe. To what you're saying, we are behind the times.
And I don't.
Yeah, Sangamon County need to step it up.
And I understand that what I'm saying ain't a new or revolutionary idea. It's been said and proposed plenty of times before. I'm just adding my voice to it. But I do want to make the point, because I've heard a lot of people talking about the police need to be trained. No, they don't. The head of the military is not a military member. The head of the military is the president. The president is a civilian. That's done like that for a reason. You can't have combatants leading every scenario, because everything then becomes a combat zone. The cops can't lead a unit like that. That's why I said they wait.
They need a mental health
PC to get there. PC ain't at the police department. He's somewhere doing his mental health thing.
Yeah.
And then they wait for him to get there and they defer to him the entire time. They don't move until he says, this is getting out of hand. I need some support. And then they come in. But they support in the way he tells them to support. Hey, just stand over there. Shut up. Take your hand off your gun. Just stand there and shut up. I just need them to see you with the badge. That's it.
Hey, check this out though, right? I stand here today before you with arms wide open and ask you for forgiveness. I ask Miss Massey and her family for forgiveness. I offer up no excuses. What I do is offer our attempt to do better, to be better. You should have been better.
So you asking the dead woman for forgiveness?
So and this is the county sheriff, Jack Campbell.
So he's asking the dead woman for forgiveness.
Right. And her family and the supporters and everybody for forgiveness for them dropping the ball, not having a competent, properly trained, unbiased person to go out. Because earlier when I said I don't blame it all on racism, let me explain that. Because I do agree with PC. I do think racism has a lot to do with it. But I also think he a white, and you expect to do, and racism is mixed into that. So it's like a on steroids. Now I know I didn't reach my limit, so I can't say it F-boy no more. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a dude who has, think about his integrity and his character was being questioned by somebody of his own race, somebody who works with him.
See, Joe, this is where I think, and I agree with PC in fact, in the terms that we need as a community to look to do more serious background checks. And that doesn't mean everybody in the community need to be an expert on there, but there should probably be an organization, a Black organization that is doing background checks.
But
locally.
they have to have power. Those organizations can't just exist. They have to have power, because we have a review board here that don't have no kind of pull.
Right. But it start acquiring the power, and to me, is the next step. If we build in the building, the very first thing they got to know how to do is acquire the information.
And it can't be, and that team, that board of those people can't be comprised of bootlickers.
No, it's got to be. Well, I think they should be totally nonpartisan, not connected whatsoever. Your job is to procure, find, and obtain and maintain information. It's not to make decisions on the information. Just get the information.
Oh, okay.
So,
you want them to do it right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but I think the challenge is, because I agree with PC. I think one of the things is that this is happening, and there is possibly, I'll say this for me personally, there's possibly somebody greasing spigots for Grayson. Yeah. But I do think the system as a whole, I don't think we really appreciate just how easy it is for these people to move around. And just because there's a lot of pressure right now, police officers, police departments, they're saying they're understaffed. They don't have enough people, even though the crime rates are dropping across the nation. They're saying they don't have enough people to do their jobs. So they're hiring and bringing people in so fast, due diligence gets pushed out the window. And I think that's a systematic issue. If you look the part, they'll let you fill the role. But I do think to mitigate all of it, even to PC's direct point, even to the people that are talking about systemic issues, there needs to be a black organization doing that sort of research locally.
Right. What you finna say, PC?
No, I was just going to agree with what y'all saying. I think that especially if you have a grassroots board or whatever, somebody that does not have, because even grassroots groups can be corrupted, but mitigating that as much as you can to have an organization that can actually give ratings to the police, like we used to do the ratings for the politicians. Give ratings, publicize their records. You know what I'm saying? If you've had an issue of abuse with this particular officer, I mean, I know growing up, I grew up in the 39th district of Philadelphia, which is probably one of the dirtiest police districts ever in the country during that time. Everybody in the neighborhood knew which cops were dirty. He had names for them, and everybody knew if they saw these particular police officers, what to expect from them. And I think that if you start creating things of that nature, it puts pressure. You apply pressure to the police districts themselves to hire with more scrutiny. Because what we're talking about is the culture that was generated, going back a couple centuries in regards to how these police officers deal with us.
Yeah.
These police departments deal with us.
Slave patrol.
You're not going to change that culture overnight. You have to force it. And because there are other elements of this that I hope we address tonight today. But in regards to that aspect of it, I think Black people have to start being more accountable for what we allow to happen to us. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that this woman was living alone made it that much more, you know what I'm saying? It put her in much more danger.
Our vulnerability is enhanced by our unwillingness to get on code, to work together, to be a unit, to be a nation of people, to operate as one. Our unwillingness to do that, because this election cycle is really showing that. But our unwillingness to put aside the petty differences and grow up and work together as a unit leaves us vulnerable in these situations. And that's
But
unfortunate. That's the part that we play in that.
there's that is true. And electoral politics aside, there was a time when if you needed to check on somebody, you would call their neighbor.
Right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The fact that, black people feel so much like 911 is the answer to everything, and it ain't. And what we're seeing right now is that these police officers, this is not a first like a one-off. This is something that's been slowly increasing in terms of police feeling that they can exude a certain level of violence towards black women. When they show up at their house. But didn't a sister get killed a few years ago in Dallas
Yeah.
when she, sitting in her house, minding her business and got shot through her window? You know what I'm saying? These things are this stuff is happening more, and we gotta. And I believe somebody had called the police that day. So
Yeah.
we have to start becoming. See, this is when people talk about why I say we struggle with the whole concept of community, because a community relies on itself. It doesn't call outside entities to take care of things that's going on within. We are the ones that do that. And when you don't want to acquiesce or you don't want to submit to a level of authority because it looks like us, because it's black, then it puts you in jeopardy inviting people who have never shown any shred of humility or humanity when it comes to dealing with us. And it's been consistent with dealing with black men. It's been consistent with dealing with black children, specifically teenagers, and especially if they're boys, even girls. Police officers have been body slamming black girls for the last 10 years. You know what I'm saying? In schools, out schools, in swimming pools, all sorts of places.
Systemic
You know what I'm
stuff
saying?
that Pat talking about.
And now it's black women. And it's like now when you keep separating, we keep willfully separating ourselves, we create the chasms that keep us apart. Shout out to Pat Book, the chasm. I show up by it. Shameless plug. In addition to that, you know what I mean? We need to look at there you go, Joe, right on the money. We need to start figuring out how to address these issues ourselves. As a black therapist, I can relate to black men and black women better than people who are not from our community because our psychology is different, our pedagogy is different, the things we go through is different, our PTSD is different than everybody else's. And only those of us who are trained in our community and understand the therapeutic process, not just the academic therapeutic process, but the way we get down the way, as we always say, then that needs to be looked at from that perspective. You know what I'm saying?
But that's as you're saying that, you're making me think about the downfall of being dependent on an oppressive society, the downfall of being dependent upon an oppressive culture, because we're talking about systemic issues, right? And we're looking at an individual, but like Pat said, the larger picture is the systemic issues. So, but if we're looking at this case and examining this case, the fact that he has this checkered past, like stated earlier, the fact that he has this checkered past, 6 jobs in 4 years, he's continuing to get hired. So when you're going back to say, who does he know? He know the right people within that structure, because was he working in different states or just different counties within the same state?
I believe it's different counties within the same
Different
state.
counties, I think.
So yes, people do know people, and he know the right people that's helping that, but that's the systemic nature of all this, because he shouldn't be hired. He's clearly not qualified. He's clearly not mentally stable. He's clearly not a human being. She's taking a pot of boiling hot water off the stove that he told her to get. There's a counter separating them. There's an island separating them, and he's threatened for his life. How? And she's crouched down on the floor. How are you threatened? If anything, she would spill the water on herself.
There's two parts to that too, Joe. Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go
I'll make
ahead.
one more thing.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. There's two
No,
parts
go
to that.
ahead. Yeah.
There's two parts to that. Thank you. First part is, you know, he wasn't by himself in drawing his gun.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't we talked about the other officers who should have de-escalated him?
Hey man, chill out. What you doing?
Right.
You gonna get us in trouble.
Right. So he also should be facing some type of public reprimand so that we know what's going on with him. He also should be, because his conduct also supported the action that executed that woman. Second of all, we gotta start holding these black police chiefs accountable for the people they allow. Because the police chief in this particular, the sheriff, the whatever the hell his title is, the lead sheriff in that department, he's black.
No, Campbell,
Jack Campbell.
Jack Campbell, a white guy.
Okay, all right, because I was gonna get him. All right,
Yeah.
I just watched a black man apologize.
Nah,
All right,
Jack Campbell, a white guy. Yeah, I had to look because the reason why I looked that up because and I have to go back and see. We had a sheriff here in Tallahassee named Jack Campbell, so that made me go look to see what he looked like.
Okay, I was gonna get it. All right.
Yeah.
All right, then I understand. The good old boy network.
I'm just saying, right?
Well,
no, because what happens is when you pass them on to, I'm saying shut up, Pat.
No, go ahead.
What happens is, unofficially, he's getting recommendations from somebody. Hey man, I got this guy. He's getting in a little trouble up here, but he's a good guy. You know, just bring him down, and he should work out good in your department. And that keeps happening, especially with that tattoo. That tattoo is his calling card, and you know, so we're not gonna underpin any of that. But you know, I digress.
Let me find the tattoo. Go ahead, Pat.
I think, and see, the thing of it is for me. Because, you know, I've listened and I've thought about various reasons why he might have fired his weapon. I've heard people talk about, you know, it might have been a panic firing where he drew his weapon. And at that point, he was so nervous that when she moved, he panicked. I've heard all, but the problem becomes, why did he draw his weapon in the first place?
Right.
And so, and then it goes to PC's point, which I'm glad you brought it up, the partner. And this goes back to that militarized culture that is present in the police department. This idea that we're combating on the streets to protect the good from the bad. No, you're not. You're police officers. You're supposed to be mitigating the realms of gray. In those rare instances where there is objective, clear bad happening, you have special response units for those situations. The average cop shouldn't be involved in those situations because it requires an intense level of training and an intense level of psychological preparation, and they should be undergoing a steady stream of psychological evals, complete with implicit bias assessments to measure, to figure out if a guy is scoring a certain score on an implicit bias indicator that shows that he has even a slight preference to white people, he shouldn't be placed in a crisis situation. So we get into these situations where now you feel obligated, and I understand this prior military, you feel obligated to back your buddy up. Right or wrong, it don't matter. We in this together. So you pull your gun out, I pull my gun out. Because we're combatants in the war zone, and whoever's on the other end of the barrel is the opposition. Even if the person on the other end of the barrel is a woman going through mental health issues with a pot of boiling water that I told to go stand next to it.
That's what I'm saying.
So
even that I thought about that because he was on one from the get when he got there too. If you're looking at a lot of stuff, they were there too long. He was on one, and then he tells her to go take the pot of boiling water off the stove. They have a little exchange. She says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. So it made me think, did he kind of, orchestrate that a bit by telling her to go get that?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. This is what I think happened, and I could be wrong, but this is the reasonable side of me fighting with the conspiracy side of me. So this is the reasonable side of me. I think because the way him asking had there been any previous calls, I think he knew there had been at least some previous somethings. I think he was agitated when he got there because of all of the calls that have been coming from that location. You working the beat, that's his beat. He's getting a lot of calls in that area, that location. I think he was agitated. Then, doing the check, I think he got there agitated. He looked around the premises a little bit, didn't find nothing, was agitated because he's probably like, I'm wasting my time. And then he went in there with the mindset, I'm gonna teach this lady a lesson because she's disrespecting the police force. I could see all of that happening, and then I do think so. The non-spiritualist side of me is saying we don't really know how he interpreted her saying, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Like that could have been a demon pulling at his spirit. It could have been him recognizing that this woman is identifying me as an evil whatever. I'm out here to protect and serve, which would increase his agitation. But it goes back to what PC said, which is his partner was posted. That's one of the whole purposes of having a partner, not just to back you up, but also to calm you down, keep you cool. It's two of y'all there to de-escalate the situation. So if one of y'all up, that's the purpose of redundancy. We got a secondary person here trained in de-escalation tactics to de-escalate the situation, even if the situation that needs to be de-escalated is being escalated by the police. De-escalate the situation. Well, but at the end of the day, none of it matters. The specifics matter in terms of analyzing this case and having a conversation where we figure out what went wrong here. And I respect that, and I think we should do it as a people individually and as a community. But when we start talking about systemic issues and how we prevent this from happening moving forward, all of those details don't matter because the whole situation was broken the moment the mother had to call the police force and beg them not to kill her daughter, not to do harm to her daughter.
In addition to that, all that breaks down if we don't give a damn about being one. We don't give a damn about working together. We don't give a damn about being codified and operating together. We can't better protect ourselves. We can't better fight systemic issues. We're always going to be vulnerable to systemic issues because we're vulnerable to everything. Hey, we're vulnerable to ourselves because we refuse to operate as one. So we're always going to have people who are in vulnerable positions toward the bullies.
Well, and I'm going to add something too. So what Pat was saying about the agitation part, because if you look at that guy, he was jacked, like huge.
Yeah. He wasn't a small guy.
So I'm questioning now, like what hormonal supplements is this man taking as he's working out? Because they don't just work out without taking supplements. And those types of things, like being like a voided steroid monster. You know what I'm saying? And coming to those. So that's something else that, we need to be looking at in terms of like you send somebody jacked up out to the community when they're supposed to be able, when they're making judgment calls.
Yeah.
And specifically if they don't care about the people that they're making these judgment calls about.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to find more information on the tattoo, but also if he got this attitude, he going out there with this attitude, he jacked up, he's messed up, got integrity issues, he got character issues, got all these things. Plus, he's a racist. Because people have been, looking up the tattoo and identifying the tattoo. I'm still looking for specifics on the tattoo. I saw a video earlier this week that was talking about it, but I don't remember exactly what they talked about with the tattoo. But you have all these factors working against Sean Grayson in the police department and the sheriff's department, whatever he was with.
Well, let me offer this take, because then we get in the rabbit holes. And again, interesting, great conversations to have. But even if we identify, we got to ask ourselves, if we identify this tattoo and it really is a racist identifier, and we recognize it and identify it, tactically, they're just going to change it.
Sure. Well, I mean,
so it really doesn't benefit us any to go into it from that perspective. In turn, like the dude is a racist, and my position, and I know people disagree with it. Until proven otherwise, don't trust the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Every cop you see, until that cop makes an effort, and yes, that's part of your job. I don't owe you trust as a police officer after all you've done to me. You got to build trust.
Right.
Until you build that trust with me, I'm treating you the same way. I'm treating you like you're Grayson.
Right.
And I think as a community, we got to move like that. Until you know for a fact, through over a prolonged, consistent, persistent period of time, that this cop ain't on that, assume he is on that. If somebody need a wellness check in the black neighborhood, we got to find a way to send a black person out there to go, not a black police officer, a black person to go out there and check on them. If a black person need a wellness check in a white neighborhood, I mean, you know, it's pros and cons. Everything got pluses and minuses. You chose to live out there. So we got to call the police to come check on you, because a bunch of black people coming out there to check on you. Now you're putting everybody at risk, because all the white folk gonna call the people. So they're gonna end up anyways out there. So it might as well just send them on out there. But in a black neighborhood specifically, there's got to be something else we can do to wellness checks, to, you know, on that level, and another line we could call.
Well, that comes to real community engagement and people. Well, we know about that, right?
Yeah.
We know about real community engagement that usually breaks down over time after people figure out how much real work it takes. But that's what it's really going to take. People within the communities who actually care about the people in the communities, especially the black people who are in the communities, who are dedicated to being a part of these groups and organizations who are going to provide these wellness checks. If that doesn't happen, nothing else we say matters. We have done two things. For one, I keep saying that we have to give a damn about ourselves as a whole. We have to want to work together. If we don't do that, nothing else we're saying really matters. And this Sonya Massey situation, it unfortunately, it will be just one of many situations, and they're not going to stop because we're not going to do what we need to do. And it's on like that part of the ball is in our court, to creating these committees to check on ourselves, to actually work together, to really fight systemic issues, but to really understand what systemic issues are. Because yes, we're examining one issue that's a part of a greater issue. But we're examining this one issue because it's the latest issue, but it's another way that we can get people to look at the bigger picture of what's going on. Until we do that, here we are.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I mean, that's the problem with it. Like nobody likes these Sonya Massey situations. Nobody likes these situations. But I mean,
people do like them.
I mean, I do think the trauma, but you know,
until it happens to them, I don't think they care. It's like,
what's the young man, Jordan Davis, that was in Jacksonville that got executed by the white guy? I remember his mother being here in Tallahassee, and she said out her mouth, a lot of these gun violence issues or these issues with these teens, she didn't care about until it happened to her son. That's unfortunate. It shouldn't take that.
Martin's parents said the same thing. I talked to his father. He said the same thing.
It shouldn't take that.
All of them, which is why, and again, it's very controversial, but as a black community that is in a perpetual state of survival, we're not doing a very good job of doing that, because we keep rushing to back people that don't care until it, like, if before I get outraged about something happening to you, I need to know that you were outraged before it happened to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, I think that's another way, because what ends up happening is every time something happens bad, the family or somebody connected to that person becomes a spokesman, a change agent. And now you have a baby that is a change agent. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. They haven't properly processed it. And everything is centered around their experience and what they felt about it, which is valid, but it's not enough to make a meaningful change on a cultural or communal level. So it's valid for you, but when it comes to talking about us in the community, shut the up.
Hey, but also we can't continue to get mad and complain about officers like, or sheriff or law enforcement officers like Grayson. If we're going to continue to move the way we move, we continue to leave ourselves vulnerable to racists like Grayson.
And you know what I've seen? I've seen like momentum build up.
It's open season
For situations like this. And then you'll have one naysayer say, well, we got to do it for this, we got to do it for that, and we got to do it for this. So basically, what it comes down to is, eventually people are like, all right, well, what's the point of doing anything? And I think we find so many ways to weasel out of the communal responsibility that we should have. And so we the worst thing that happened to Black people as a whole is social media. Because people used to actually come out and actually have town meetings, neighborhood watch meetings and things of that nature in person. People would become invested in each other. I can recall when I was kidnapped by the cops when I was 15 years old, my whole neighborhood came outside. You know what I'm saying? Looking for me and actually put some whoop ass on those cops when he found me. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? But that was back in the time where we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, didn't even have cell phones. So nowadays, people think typing something or putting a post on Facebook or Instagram is actually doing community work or doing community building. But you don't have any connection to nobody, so you don't care about nobody. And because the operate behavior is practiced so much in regards to how we're delivered information, people have become very disinterested in anything unless it's click worthy or unless it goes viral.
Yeah.
And even then, the responses are still laced and latent to social media. So in regards to fixing this police reform, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Because that's just a catchphrase that they use to try to weasel out of the responsibility of treating Black people like human beings. You have to create something, not in the name, you know what I'm saying? But you have to do something to address the system. Like we've been talking about this entire time, there's going to be change. And it can't be something, like Patrick just said, it can't be something that's resurrected or because something happened to you and your family. God forbid anything happens to any of our loved ones. Nobody can say we haven't been out here trying to change shit. But for the majority of these people, they didn't give a damn about the kid next door until something happened to their kid. Or the woman next door until something happened to their child. And even the family of Sonya Massey, maybe they were just tired. I know dealing with people who have mental health issues in the family, taxing, everybody ain't built for it. Maybe they were just tired. And so they got into a situation where we're going to just call the police because we want to put this burden, a family burden, we want to put this burden on somebody else because we can't deal with no more. The problem is they don't give a damn about your burdens. And they don't give a damn about coming in there and face off the wall like they did as she was kneeling on the ground.
In a
begging for her
submissive
life.
position. And what's crazy is Buddy said, you seen in the video, if you watch the full, I'll post a link to the full video of the interaction between Grayson and Sonya Massey. But after pulling the trigger, he's looking at his partner talking about, you seen her, she tried to throw the water at me. She was coming at me. The water was coming at me. No, it wasn't.
Not guilty.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Like you are fully guilty. You are fully responsible for this lady not being here anymore. You and your partner, like you pointed out. Because I thought about that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought about that when I watched the video. Like, the partner just didn't do nothing.
No, the partner backed him.
Right.
Yeah, partner backed him.
Right.
In other words, when you look at that situation, it's definitely an alpha beta situation where Grayson's the alpha and the other partner is the beta.
But
in regards to that,
yeah, if it wouldn't have been the outcry was, like, would anybody have not backed him without the outcry?
Without the outcry, he probably would have been fired, and he probably would have got another job somewhere else.
There you go. 7 jobs in 4 years.
I'd be interested to know, like, all the police officers that killed somebody black, and then we had this viral moment for them. I'd like to know what they're doing now, because I got a hunch that many of them are still working in law enforcement in some way, shape, or form.
I think most of them are doing just fine. I mean, well, we know for a fact most of them are doing just fine. George Zimmerman became a millionaire.
Yeah.
And most of the cops get some sort of trust fund raised for them. We don't talk about that. Most of them, I've been following that. Most of the ones I've been following,
money get raised for them.
They get money raised for them by their supported people and supported organizations. And they get to keep their jobs.
Talk about systematic stuff, right? Talking about systematic stuff. They will do something like execute a black person. The people who support that will raise money to support them, and then try to create narratives to make excuses of why they did that. But the main thing is they financially supported this person, even though they executed a black person.
Well, that's
systemic stuff, man. It's embedded in the culture.
They practice nationalism.
On code.
Yeah, they practice nationalism, which is their nation is first. Their nation comes first. And so they practice nationalism. Black people want to be incorporated into their nationalism. And, you know, I was watching a sister talk about the fact that most black people aren't nationalists, but they want to be nationalists at times. They want to cherry pick when they want to be national.
Individualist.
You know? Right. For the most part, most black people they'll tell you they don't care nothing about this black. And they'll say they created derogatory terms for it. Hotep this, Hotep that.
Yeah.
You know, the whole concept of being dusty was about people who identified as black nationalists and Pan-Africanists.
Hey, man.
So, you know, you can't cherry pick when you want to be black just because you've been offended, and those who offend you are definitely certified on their whiteness. You know what I'm saying? Or their culture or color. You can't then decide, oh, let me go back to this thing because that's what they're using as this shield. That shield that they use as blackness over there, that works. And then you conjure this shit. It don't work like that.
The negative connotation for a hotep or a person or a scammer in the black community or in the conscious community is worse than drug dealers. Let that sink in.
And the mere fact that is the name of what is recognized by many as the first black multi-genius is used as an insult.
Yep.
Never fails to
I come in peace.
Never fails to amend. But I want to say this. I am not in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I saying that people who have gone through things shouldn't have a right to speak their piece. Like, this family should absolutely have a right to speak their piece. What I'm saying is, like, they're not making a mistake. As a community, we fail when we make these people our spokesman. We fail when we make them our leaders, our strategists, our change agents. We fail. They're doing what they feel they need to do. And I'm never going to criticize somebody for doing what they need to do. What we need to do as a community in those moments is say, look, I appreciate you. I respect and honor your loss. This ain't your lane.
Well, we don't know how to do that because the sensationalism around it, the notoriety that comes with it, the passion that's in it. Because remember, this is the history of Black people. This is how Black people have always, or for the most part, how Black people have fought back, using our voice, using our platforms and our voice, because we have to speak out and we have to bring awareness.
And that history has led us to here, right. So we need to throw it away and do something different. Because
they do deserve better spokesperson and better responses from the Black community. All the victims of any of these violent crimes, these racist crimes, these terroristic crimes, they all deserved a better response from us as a community. And we're not in a position to do it. The only thing we can do is use our voice.
And I'm going to get on Ben Crump for a second here. I know we're from the same hometown. But look, Ben, I joke a lot about Ben Crump. I do. But at the end of the day, I respect what Ben Crump believes he's doing. And I word it like that intentionally. But that Ben Crump, that reading was disrespectful.
Oh, that word.
That was disrespectful. You couldn't give those people a 30-second read over before the cameras turned on. That was too much for you to look down at the paper and skim it. Like, that's disrespect. That is disheartening, disrespectful, and very upsetting. Like, I'm very disappointed. I know we're making jokes about it, but that's embarrassing.
It is.
Not just like for that's
Black
embarrassing
people.
For you.
For Black people, for him, for the family, for everybody.
You are one of the most recognizable names when it comes to Black tragedy. And not only are you letting us know that you've never really read the documents before, either that or you had an extreme brain fart and a crazy blind moment. Either that or you need to go the way of Joe Biden and just sit it down somewhere because you're too old. I'm not sure which one of those things it is.
You're not that old.
I'm sure it ain't that you're too old. But you should give the same apology the police chief just gave. Boy. For them people. Because you just girl again. Not only now, as a family, I got to listen to you tell everybody about the damage done to my family member at the hands of these police, and you brutalize the word in such a way that you extend the experience 30 seconds. I might have hit him in the back of the head.
Hey, we do it to ourselves after the big tragedy that's already been done. We continue to keep the cuts going, but
that man is better than that, Joe.
Bruh, I know that. I know that. You know that. We know that. Everybody knows that. PC don't think so, but
you from y'all town, man. I'm gonna let y'all
have. Hey. Well, I ain't gonna say that now. I'll say that for another episode. But once again, though, this is another unfortunate tragedy that happened to a Black person that we're covering. We've been doing me and Pat together been podcasting about 10 years. Me, Pat, and PC together have been podcasting about 5 years. But we all have a collective total of like 10 years plus podcasting. And we've been talking about stuff like this every year for the past 10 years.
Shit, Joe, but between the three of us, we bought it 50 plus years podcasting.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's like, but throughout all of our times, we've always had to talk about situations like this. And it's unfortunate because once again, we like I say, we concentrate on the individual situation, which we know that does deserve attention, but it takes us away from the larger issue, from the bigger picture. And because we're not focusing on the bigger picture, once again, it's always going to bring us back here, the vulnerability, the inability to protect ourselves, the inability to strategize, the inability to unite, unless it's for some frivolous causes that's really not going to help us at the end of the day. But if we really don't want these situations to happen again, we don't want them to happen again, we got to get serious. That's it. That's the word. Either get serious or stop complaining. So, fatlifestation.com, 2 p.m. Make sure you tune in. You already know the link is in the description. You go ahead and tune on in, tap in, see what PC got going on right now. Thepax.com. Make sure you check it out. See what we as a collective got going on with that. OnTheShoulders1.com. Make sure you check out the website. Had my first interest meeting for my Black History School. I'm going to have another one so we can give other people a chance to check it out. We have people interested, have parents interested, have children interested, and we ready to move forward. So we're having another interest meeting just to make sure we give everybody a chance to come by and check us out. So that's happening real soon. So look out for us, man, and make sure y'all support what we got going on over here. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. We out.